What's up, fellas? Noordoom here. I'm on my Commons and Rares deck, Warlocks, Ninjas. This is on my other account, Blight. And we're gonna do a deck revamp. So we played 20 games already. We created a deck, played 10 games, then we made some swaps, played 10 more games. Now we're gonna look and see where we are. We're gonna make some more swaps. So what's gonna happen every time when we do a deck revamp, and there might only be like one more or maybe two more revamps after this, is that we're gonna end up changing less and less because things ideally should be working better and better. So before we get into the deck, this is where it is right now. One thing I'll mention is, so I did 20 games. If you haven't watched all 20, that's fine. But I would recommend watching the games that I lost. So for the first version of this deck, all the 1.0 games after that, I think I lost game 1.4 and 1.7. Because if you watch those games, then you'll see where the defaults are in the deck, the defects. And those are the areas that we really want to see, because that'll show us how to improve the deck. And many of the other games in Mill as well, I did some tips on just general gameplay and also how this deck is performing, and I share my thought process along the way, things that I wish were different. And for this last set of 10 games, I did lose 2 as well. So I believe that was game 2.7 and 2.9. So you can go ahead and watch those as well. So for the first set, it was 8-2 record. For the second set, it was 8-2. So overall, we're 16-4. So that's an 80% win rate. Sure, that's going to drop at some point, especially as we are ranking up. Currently, I think we're rank 8. Okay, so I'm going to craft some cards, and then that I already know I'm going to add in here. And then we're going to go ahead and look at the deck again. So I'm going to get 2 vampires. And I was talking about this card, Vampire. And we are going to get 2 Dancing Swords. There we go. Made it. Okay, so here's the deck. So let's go through some of our changes from last time and some of the things that we're swapping this time. So last time we put in 2 Witch Bolts, and so far this card's been working out. I'm actually liking it in this deck. I don't think it's really hurt us too much so far. One thing I am thinking though, in mono decks, the Witch Bolt, the extra drawing card, will help them draw into legendaries. And against Crusaders and against Vikings especially, that might not be a good thing. So I think that's just something to keep in mind general gameplay. We put this in instead of Incinerate. I'm not saying Witch Bolt is better than Incinerate. I'm just thinking in this deck, Witch Bolt is functioning better than Incinerate, just because it's cheaper to cast and many of our things are pretty cheap, so we're on the low end of the curve. I think that's one thing people should realize in Cards and Castles and most games. Everything is relevant. So something that might be good in one deck might not be as good as in another deck for the most part. It's not like one card is always going to be better than another. There are some exceptions. I believe there's 2 cards in Vikings, Battle Armor and Ice Weapon or something like that. And Ice Weapon is basically the exact same stats as Battle Armor plus an extra ability. So things like that are direct upgrades, but those are rare. Okay, Harmonic Balance has been working out for us. So I'm going to keep this card for now. However, I'm actually thinking what I'm going to do in the next set of playtests and ranking, I'm going to keep in mind, what if this Harmonic Balance was Adrenaline Rush instead? And the reason for that is Adrenaline Rush only costs 1, and pretty much everything I can play from my hand and run straight up to the castle. The reason why that's good is because that means I can also use Firewall and Darkfire right up next to the castle. So I will keep that in mind, swapping out Harmonic Balance for Adrenaline Rush, but I'm not going to do that just yet. I think I want to test Harmonic Balance more, especially with those new units I'm about to add in. I'm keeping Grotesque Offering here. I liked how it was functioning before. I swapped this out halfway through. I swapped out Dark Bolt halfway through for this card. I'm going to keep the Grotesque though. So everything else is good. And Control Burst, this card I'm going to take out. And for Uncontrolled Burst, I'm going to add in Vampire. Reason for that is for 2-drop, so it's cheap. And I found I lost one of my games. I had 5 spells in my hand, and I just thought I needed more units. And one of the spells I did have was Uncontrolled Burst, or a turn earlier I had Uncontrolled Burst, which did nothing for me. So with the Vampire, I think it might interact well with Harmonic Balance, especially Early Rush. And he's another 2-drop, so if I can get my 2-drops there, then I'm being a little bit more aggressive, and I like that. And since he's cheap, he can combo with things like Tag Team to get something else in play. And yeah, he's just a cheap guy. I don't think he's super fantastic, but I think he's okay. And he can trade well with most other units as well. Next card I'm cutting is Mage Apprentice. So Mage Apprentice, after playing with it, I don't think it's a bad card, but it has to be in the right deck, the deck that'll make the best use out of it, and this deck is not that deck. This card is a little bit more defensive, and yeah. So whenever I played Mage Apprentice, and I ran up and I shot something for 2, those plays were good. However, I never really ran up even further to hit the castle with Mage Apprentice, because I thought he would die. And quite often he did die even before then, and quite often he got speared by Headless Guardian, so he died. And a few times I just wished his attack was 3, so then this way I could take out something bigger, but it wasn't. So I found this guy to be a little underwhelming in this deck. He did not let me be aggressive. Whenever I had him, I felt I needed to protect him, and he was just sitting in the back. And that's what you do with more control decks, but then at the same time, I want to keep the action on my opponent's side of the field, not on my side. So I'm going to cut it. I'm going to add in Dancing Swords. So Dancing Swords, I feel this is a pretty good card. When his, doesn't say it right now, but he has an Awaken ability that gives him +3 attack just for a turn. So that's 7 damage, and if you can get in 7 damage to the castle, that's pretty good. And with his 4 movement and 1 attack, he's basically the same as the Apprentice just now, because that had 2 movement and 3 range. So total of 5. This guy has 4 movement, 1 range, total of 5. So they'll be able to hit the same targets. And with his 4 health, he can survive things that are smaller. So for example, if my opponent is playing Berserker, he can kill Berserker and survive. And if he survives, then there's a greater chance that he'll be able to trade. And we'll see how that goes. And then he can go and just directly take out another Dancing Swords, or he can take out a Master at Arms, and a few other things like that. And some of the other range units that walk up, he can take them out if they walk up close enough. And with Dancing Swords, he can also play Lunge and directly hit the castle, or he can keep a little back, let his Awaken trigger, and then hit the castle. So we'll see how that functions, but that's the plan, the idea. And I think that's pretty much all the changes I'm going to make right now. Headless Horseman, I like this card, and I feel that I need to keep him as a late game enabler. So he's going to stay there for now. He only has 3 damage. I think that's the worst part about him. Only 3 damage, and comes in for 5, or let's say I play him later, turn 8 or 9. It's only 3 damage and only 5 health, so he'll die. But at least he makes it across the board, which is what we want to do in this deck. We want to make it across the board. Swordsman, this guy can, I think in theory or on paper he looks a little underwhelming, but then whenever I played him, it worked out for the best, and whenever I had him in my hand, I never felt disappointed with him. So he's not a bomb card, but he's still very useful. And I think I've used him in conjunction with Harmonic Balance a couple of times, and I think I even was able to walk up to Castle in Darkfire, so he's staying in there. So this is the current deck. This is our 3.0 deck. We're keeping it like this. So what am I thinking for the next round? Well, of course, I'm going to check out Vampire and Dancing Swords and see how they pan out. See if I want to do any swaps with them. Other card I was thinking about is Shadow Drake, but I feel like Vampire will just be better than the Shadow Drake. But we'll see. I'm considering taking out Harmonic Balance for Adrenaline Rush to run right up to the castle, so I'll keep that in mind. Can I do that? And I'll see if I'm missing the late game burn spells. So I'm not running Spirit Blast right now. I'm not running Uncontrolled Burst. So if I'm wishing that I had one of those two cards in my hand and I top a Vampire or top a Dancing Swords, then I kind of know. Or if I top anything else, I kind of know. And I also kind of want to find room for Dark Bolt in here. Just because it cycles, it draws me a card. And I like having something like that, but I'm just not sure at this moment what to cut for Dark Bolt. So that's my thoughts. This is the deck. I will see you guys soon for another game. Alright? If you are liking the content, go ahead and like, subscribe, and comment below. We'll see if we can keep this 80% win rate. Maybe increase it. But even if it goes down, that's okay. Alright, take care, guys.